Hey guys, did you know that I really like pro wrestling? Like, seriously, unironically, I love pro wrestling. That's kind of silly to you, I'm sure, if you're a normal person. I get it. That's okay. I don't take offense. In fact, a lot of people think it's kind of silly. Luckily, Dan Cerruti has a fantastic podcast called So That's Your Thing, and he invited me on said podcast to talk all about my love for pro wrestling and why I think pro wrestling is truly an incredible art form and one that shouldn't be overlooked by those who are into other facets of pop culture. How it's not that much different from movies, TV shows, and comics you may like. I would really appreciate it if you gave that conversation a listen. It's on iTunes and wherever podcasts are found, and it's called So That's Your Thing, because that's my thing.
Want awesome tabletop games delivered right to your door? Sign up now for GameBox Monthly. Learn more at GameBoxMonthly.com.
Yes, let's talk about it indeed. Welcome back to yet another episode of Elaborate. I'm back from my week off of resting. I'm recharged. Lots of traveling, lots of chaos. But we're here. We're back. Thanks for sticking with us. I am so excited, you guys. I'm sitting down today with somebody who's been mentioned on this show quite a few times. She is a dear, dear friend of mine. She's incredibly talented, an actress, a writer, a producer, co-host of InterroBang. It's Tybee Diskin. Hi, Tybee.
Hi, Jake.
How are you?
I'm good.
You good? You're somber. I feel like I yell a lot, and you're the antithesis of that.
I think I am in my adulthood a mostly low energy person.
You think you vegged?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think you were always that way.
no. If I have, I think it's my general state is like
Right.
fairly low energy, but I definitely get amped. I'm not trying to say I don't get fucking amped, Jake.
She's like, I can get fucking turned.
I get turned.
People may be familiar with you from a wide variety of things on the interwebs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe most notably, if I may say most notably, for your fantastic podcast, which just recently had its last episode. Very sad to see it go, but it was fantastic to listen to while it was happening. InterroBang, featuring Travis and Tybee.
Mm-hmm.
Every week it was you and Travis, whose last name I'm going to butcher, McElroy?
McElroy.
McElroy.
Mm-hmm.
What was
Travis
like doing?
McElroy, one of the McElboys.
One of the Wait, what? Say that again?
I said Travis McElroy, one of the McElboys.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Are they the McElboys?
He and his brothers are sort of podcast darlings.
Right. And they have a show on CISO now.
Mm-hmm. My brother, and me.
And how did you hook up with him? And how did that podcast start? Because I feel like one day you just had a podcast, and I was like, I don't even know who this guy is.
That's kind of what happened.
Really?
Travis. So I met with a friend of mine who you also know, Amy Vorpahl.
Yes, of course.
And we were meeting because I had some sort of pitch I was trying to hone. And I needed sort of a punch up from somebody who was good at pitching stuff. And also I hadn't seen Amy in a million years. So we met for coffee and I was talking about sort of what I was into and what had been going on in my life. And she was like, I think you should meet my friend Travis. I didn't know anything about Travis.
Right.
I had never heard of, I listened to no podcasts. So like, I didn't know anything about the McElroy brothers. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
So
it's weird the way that podcasting is its own subculture of society.
Yeah, it really is.
Like there are people who know podcasts and will know every single person who's podcasting. And it's like there's this entire subculture of like names that people are like, how do you not know that person? And I'm like, I don't know.
Listen to podcasts. It's silence or it's music in my house,
or
man.
even if you do listen to podcasts, like I listen to like my 5 podcasts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we met for coffee and just were like, oh, we're best friends now. And he like told me a little bit about what he did, but it took me a long time to listen to a single episode of My Brother and Me.
Isn't it crazy how hard it is to listen to a podcast?
It is. That's why when I was doing InterroBang, my friends would be like, oh, I haven't listened yet. And I was like, it's fine. It's fine. Like I didn't make it for you. I'm doing it because I like it. So like it doesn't hurt my feelings.
With that said, all of my friends listening to this, I am doing this for you. So please continue to listen.
I'm doing it.
You're not off the hook
for you. Yeah. So we were just good close friends, and we would do like trivia every week, and I just love him to death. And one day I was like, it's a funny word, InterroBang. It's the question mark and an exclamation point. And it'd be fun to do a show where we just bitch about stuff. And he was like, all right.
And then that was
And
it.
then that was it.
And then you had a podcast.
Yeah.
How long did you guys do that for?
A year and a half. 69 episodes.
Nice. Got in there, got out of there, had the joke intact. Well done. I feel like from the beginning you're like, we're doing 69, right? Yeah, absolutely. 69, then we're out.
We planned on doing it forever.
Right.
It just didn't work out that way. Life.
He ended
life throws
up
stuff at you.
moving for work purposes and family purposes. And
He moved when Teresa was still pregnant with BB. They moved back to Cincinnati,
right.
which
makes it tough.
It made it tough, but also like when the administration changed,
right,
it really changed the weight of the show.
Right.
I think it was nice to have like a show where we like bitch about lighthearted traffic things. And then it was sort of like, oh no, the world's ending.
Right.
There are
it's
things,
hard to not discuss that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's the same, like it's you guys every single week. The benefit I have this particular show is that every week I'm sitting down with somebody new, so there's always something sort of fresh to talk about.
Yeah.
Whereas,
it got weird.
Yeah. Not that we haven't discussed the impending doom on this very show, but
sure, but there are varying, points of
Absolutely.
view, and I think that was, we just didn't anticipate that.
Right.
And I feel really proud of InterroBang. I think we did some good for a lot of people, and
I mean, your listener base and the community that you guys built always seemed incredibly not just enthusiastic but appreciative and thankful. I mean, everybody always had really kind words. Everybody was always, I mean, if you look up people discussing it, it's all that like, oh, I was able to, come out to my family because of the show, or I was able to, people like were really kind of affected by it in a really positive way. So that's at the end of the day, that's, I mean, you get one story like that and it's worth it. And I feel like you guys had quite a few.
And vice versa. I think I was impacted very positively by our audience. I just realized, it's funny, yesterday I was checking my email and I realized my like, we had the InterroBang email, and then I had my own InterroBang email for when I was doing InterroPals, which was like a pen pal system.
Gotcha.
A lot of our listeners had sort of life stories in common, and were, a 19-year-old trans girl who can't come out to her family and needs somebody to talk to, and there would be somebody across the United States or in a different country that was like, I'm going through the same thing.
Similar.
So, or just like, I just moved and I'm lonely, like whatever. So I think I matched probably about 50 people.
Wow.
And so when I was doing that, I had like my own email specifically for that. And I found an email yesterday that I hadn't seen because it wasn't syncing. I didn't realize that. And I had spoken about in the last couple episodes of InterroBang about starting to wonder as an adult if I was actually misdiagnosed with ADHD and am perhaps on the spectrum,
right?
Because of some other like cues in my life. And somebody emailed me with like all this information, and she was like, just so you know, I know quite a bit about this, and you should definitely make sure that you talk to a specialist who has a focus in female, like autism and how it affects women.
Oh,
because apparently
there's
a difference in how it manifests, and I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
And she was like, just so you know, like you might not get the care that you actually need because this manifests differently. And I was so grateful for that information because I had no idea. So definitely I feel. And
it's something that's so specific that unless somebody knows exactly that, how are you ever going to find that out?
I wouldn't know to Google that.
Right.
Like, is it different? Like, how would I?
Yeah.
How would I ever know that? So, I feel very, very positively impacted by that community as well. It was definitely.
And it was called InterroPals. Was that pen pal system?
Yeah.
Are you still going to try to do that? Continue that post show? Because I feel like that's a thing that's just I mean, like there are people out there. And that the great thing about the podcast is that you might not be continuing to do it week to week, but it's going to live forever. People are going to consistently find it and re-listen. I feel like that's kind of a thing that, I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, you should do a thing, but you know what I'm saying?
I think it's something I may do. It's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Because the information is sensitive, one.
Right.
And I got some help this last time around because it's just like, there are a lot of factors that come into play, right? Because I would ask people to tell me about themselves, and I had sort of a coding system, like a legend with a little little color codes.
So they didn't have to speak so blatantly via whatever.
Well, no, they
system
would. They would do it. They would send me all the information. I had like index cards for each person.
I get it. Okay.
That I eventually transferred to an Excel spreadsheet, but I had, all these index cards with like little color codes on them, and I would start to match them up that way, like people who suffer from depression and anxiety, and also maybe are in the LGBT community. Yeah. And age was a factor, because that was a thing, right? So like sometimes people had really, really similar life experiences, but they were 10 years apart. So the burden of giving advice or help falls on the older person.
Right, yeah.
Not that young people have nothing to teach us, but I think by and large, the burden was going to be on the older person.
Yeah, there's definitely... my closest friend is Tony Wayne, former guest of the show, and there's a 15-year difference between us.
Right.
And there are plenty of times where he's said to me like, man, I'm so glad you told me that thing, or he's told me this like one sentence that I've given him that has sort of helped him through something. That might be a 10 to 90 split.
Right.
as far as like, even if he doesn't realize, because he suffers from depression, he looks at himself as like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in the same position you are, and you're younger than me, that kind of thing. He doesn't realize it. Simply just living, simply just having that wisdom of 15 years more, I get so much out of him, whether he realizes it or not. So yeah, that makes perfect sense of being difficult to kind of piece two and two together.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's sort of lovely. Does Tony know that you feel that way?
Yes,
okay,
he better
good.
know that I feel that way.
Okay, good.
I mean, I don't know. I probably told him that when he's been drunk once or two times at 2 a.m. Maybe I should clarify that.
I like that okay, wait, hold on. I want to unpack what you just said.
Sure.
Because the fact that you don't drink.
Yes.
And you are telling people how much they mean to you while they're drunk, which is usually the thing that a drunk person does, is so amusing to me.
Yeah.
That you're like, I love you, man.
Do you want to know? You want to know what it is?
You inspire me.
Because usually it's me. That's so funny. Usually it's me like compensating for the type of drunk that whoever that person is. And Tony goes through jovial drunk and then turns into dark Tony. Like he turns into like dark drunk Tony. And so
it's Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Oh my God. It is like
fantastic.
He gets to a certain point where it's just like fucking everybody. His favorite thing is I can't wait till the earthquake just destroys all of Los Angeles. Like he turns into that guy.
Tony.
And so
That's
yeah,
so
but
cute.
it's such a stark comparison to his personality, which is how that works. But so usually in that sense, that's when I'm like, Tony, man, come on. I wouldn't be here without you. I love you, man. You might be like, I have to like talk him down.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's a relationship.
I think I'm mostly the same as a drunk, just like happy.
Okay, so we could talk about this a little bit because
I had a feeling you might want to.
Because we've known each other for quite a long time now, going on 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years. Yeah.
I feel like it's interesting. We have one of those relationships, and this might be a one-sided opinion of this relationship. If it is, you'll tell me what your opinion of it is. But I consider you one of my closest friends who I don't see a lot.
Yeah,
for sure. And it's one of those things where you and I could go a year without really seeing each other more than once, but it never seems like, oh, I don't, I guess I'm not friends with Tybee anymore. Like I've never experienced that sort of thing with you. And I feel
which is interesting because I think we've both evolved quite a bit. Since we moved out here, but still feel like we're operating on like similar frequencies.
Yeah, well, I think the reason is communication. I think you and I communicate in a decent way, and so, and that's also something that I think we both grew into. Because I feel like when we first met each other, neither one of us could communicate for shit. If you don't mind me saying that about you.
No, I agree with you.
Okay, good. I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but I feel like we both grew into communication, and I don't know what that is. Whether that's, freaking just the type of friends we kept, therapy, who knows what it could be for both of us. But I feel like in all of that time, to get back to the point at hand, like I never really saw you drunk.
Because I don't drink a whole lot.
Yeah, you don't drink a whole lot, and at parties you're like me. You kind of have like that people tolerance, and it usually expires around 11:25 p.m.
Smoke bomb, get out of there.
Yeah, that's sort of. I know I'm always that same way. Where I'm always like, hey, I'm gonna show up early to the party. I'm gonna help you guys set stuff up. I'm gonna hang out. I'm gonna watch everybody come. I'm gonna say hi, how you doing? You guys are gonna get drunk, and I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're sort of in that same thing. And for your birthday of this past year, was it this year or the year before?
Last year. Yeah.
Last year. I got to see like full-fledged
Drunk.
obliterated and it was delightful.
Shit faced.
It was so, you are the most joyous, that there's a T in that word now, just in case anybody's curious. You are the most joyous, just like a ball of light and love. And it's weird because if I'm being honest, I would think, knowing your personality, that it would go the opposite. If people were
I
like,
would too.
If people were like, what's Tybee like drunk? I'm like, oh, she's probably a dark drunk.
Mm-mm.
But you're not.
Mm-mm.
You are like a little ball of sunshine. You're like a freaking Care Bear. I wanted to like paint a rainbow on your tummy and rub it because I felt like you were just so jolly and jovial.
Mm-hmm.
Did not see that coming.
Were you there when I cried?
Were
you there yet?
Yeah,
you were there.
I was there. I was only there at the end. I was working and I couldn't make it
Oh,
until
really?
you guys. I was there when we went to Bob's Big Boys.
Okay.
When did you cry?
Before that, I have a friend who is very into like transcendental meditation and sort of I am hesitant to say Zen because
Right.
I think that oftentimes people misunderstand what Zen is for.
Okay.
But he has a habit of, you know, how people say like happiness is a choice.
Right. Yes.
And it's like, what an insulting thing to say to somebody who's going through a
Right.
hard time.
Yeah, exactly. Or who suffers from depression and can't explain why they're sad.
Right. And there was some stuff going on at the time regarding my old production company. And I was feeling very triumphant to have gotten out of something that was damaging for me.
Right. You were in a good headspace. You were
Yeah.
good-spirited
And
about a
I was
shitty
like-
thing.
I was like, yes. And there was like maybe going to be a little bit of justice happening. And I was
Right.
feeling good about it. And my friend said something like, we were discussing it for just a minute. And I said like, I was happy like that this toxic person for me doesn't have power over me anymore.
Right.
And he was like, he never did. And I was like, okay, that's not helpful to me.
Right.
Because what you're saying effectively is that I put myself in that position.
Yeah.
And that isn't good right now.
Ooh.
So maybe don't say that. And he was like, but he did. And I just
kept
made me like
insisting.
burst into tears. Like I was like, because I was already drunk.
Right.
And I was like furious. And I walked into the bathroom, and for the first time ever in my entire life, I was like drunk crying girl in the bathroom. And my friend,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
It took you a
It took
longer
me
time
till
than
29 to do it. But I was like crying on my friend's shoulder in the bathroom. Sama, I love you if you're listening to this.
most.
She was like, fuck him.
Yeah.
Fuck him. Like doing the like great.
Right.
She like nailed it.
Which
was
is
pretty
you
great.
usually.
Yeah, it's usually me.
You're usually, that's something that I've noticed, which is another reason why I think you and I get along so well and why I think we can not see each other for a while and then come back in is I feel like you and I are kind of two sides of that same coin, especially when dealing with matters of the heart, when dealing with romance. You and I talk a lot about relationships together. And I like, you are the kind of person who's like, fuck that person immediately. And I don't mean literally. I mean, like, get rid of that. Fuck, like, if.
But also, I'm that person
Yes.
who will be like, if someone's like, I like this person, I'm like,
Fuck that person immediately. This is not untrue. But yeah, that's like, that is. And meanwhile, I'm the kind of person who's like, yeah, okay, I get that, but maybe there's something that, you know. And I feel like there are some times where you need me to be like, no, don't fuck that person yet, like, you know, like,
yeah.
And then, so sometimes I need you to tell me, no, literally, fuck that person.
Let that person
They're
leave
done.
your life forever.
Never speak that person ever again.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we kind of help each other. So it's nice that you had somebody there in the bathroom with you to play Tybee for you.
Yes.
To step outside of yourself and say, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
So you
missed the crying.
I missed the crying.
That's long story short.
Yeah,
I missed the crying.
I did miss the crying. But you know what, though? I was there for the laughter, and that's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this when Verona Blue, your bestie, was on the program. We talked about how we totally looked like white supremacists sitting in that Bob's Big Boys, where it was like Eric Dent and his brother, who are like these very tall,
They're
bald,
both bald
white dudes.
Right.
You guys are all like you know, leather tatted stuff, and she's wearing the swastika with the cross through it, but from a distance, nobody can tell that there's a cross through it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all screaming about Jews because you guys were talking about being Jewish. So like, even though
I
you guys
forgot
are
about
Jewish,
this.
all people that are in the restaurant are seeing is this appearance. And by the way, the two big, tall, bald Anglo-Saxon dudes were like not sitting with us because we were bigger than the booth could contain. So they were just kind of standing near. They look like our bodyguards, you know?
Yes.
And all somebody in the restaurant hears from a distance is like laughing, Jew, Jews. Everybody thinks that we are total Trump votes at this point.
Whoops.
But that was
Cool.
fun. Yeah. Sorry, Bob's Big Boys at 3 a.m. In any case, just to speak a little bit of kind of the history. You like that, right? I dropped the microphone. Seamless. Listeners will never know that I totally dropped the microphone just then. Professional. So to go back to you and I and the genesis of our relationship.
Yeah.
We met through that weird, crazy group where everybody seemed to inevitably have to meet each other because of the earth. I told the story on the show when Brian Finifter was a guest about how he and I met, and it was totally random through like somebody who I had become friends with on MySpace. And then weeks later, a mutual friend of ours wrote us both the same letter, like, "Hey, there's a friend out in LA you should meet." And at the end of it included each other's names. And we're like, we've been friends for 2 months. Like this weird thing where I kind of just ended up in this group. And because of it, a lot of people assume that I went to FSU. You went to FSU, correct?
Correct.
Because a lot of that group is the Florida people.
Big ol' FSU group.
Big ol' FSU. And I am not one of them. You all right? You need a little sippers?
No, I'm good.
Tippers need sippers? You good?
Gross.
Okay.
Gross, that rhymes.
That wasn't even a rhyme. That's the gross part about it.
Yeah.
We became friends kind of in that group. Like, I was like, hey, here's a person who seems like me and who I tolerate for more than a few minutes. And then, like groups do, they separate, they move apart, they go this way, they go that way. And I feel like for a while, we really didn't see each other unless we were like doing something together or working on something together. And you moved out here as an actress primarily, first and foremost. And the last time that I had a conversation with you about acting, you were on the brink of being like, yeah, not going to concentrate on that anymore. How are you still in that same boat?
That's what I did. Yeah, I stopped concentrating on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you get bothered? I mean, I introduced you as an actress. Does that bother you? No, you still consider yourself?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been doing it my whole life. I don't intend on stopping. I was just on set for something the other day.
Oh, okay.
I'm not doing it. I just decided to not focus on it. I didn't want to pursue it full time.
So you tried to kind of avoid the grind, maybe, so to
Yeah,
speak?
I hate the grind.
Right.
Some people wake up in the morning and they get excited about casting workshops. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, no, those people are stupid. If you're listening to me and you're one of those people, guess what? You're stupid. They're also conning you out of your money. But I digress.
Sure. But a lot of people, for me, something where there is zero linear motion, like that really was eating at my soul.
Right.
And I was miserable. It was making me obsess about everything about myself. It was making me feel like I was never going to be good enough, like nothing I did mattered. Everything that I like worked with friends on, I wasn't really allowed to do my job, like because it was young directors working on internet stuff who didn't know how to direct other than to give a line reading. And if you're listening and you don't know what that is, it's when a director, rather than talk through the objectives or tactics or emotions of a scene, they just read the line to you the way that they want you to say it.
They just play parrot.
Which is really insulting.
Right.
It's incredibly disrespectful to an actor. And I have like real training.
I went to school for this.
I essentially went through a conservatory program.
Right.
So it was really frustrating for me. It was making me really mad. And something that I spoke a little bit about on InterroBang and I've talked about on Twitter is there's a thing that happens to me with auditioning and kind of like extra work and every avenue I tried to like get in the door. What I would find was that I was, pardon my French, fuckable but not castable.
Okay.
Where they would cast the girl who was maybe a little greener than I was, but like was thinner and more conventionally beautiful.
Okay.
She would get screen time.
Yeah.
But can I have your number, Tybee?
Right.
No, you cannot.
Yeah.
And like, that's a really weird
place
to be.
I completely feel like that's the exact same experience that I had. It might
Yeah,
not
'cause
be
you're
as
cool.
it
'Cause
might
that's
not
the
be
thing.
as like it might not be as like, hey, can I have your number? But it's that whole thing of like, oh, hey, who's this guy? He's a comic. He's this. He's really cool. But that other guy is slightly more
Yeah.
Abercrombie and Finch or whatever the current handsome is.
Right.
Especially 10 years ago when I was in the thick of like doing it hardcore.
Right. And you're like a cool person. You're very personable. You're funny. You make people feel at ease.
Right.
So people want to get to know you,
Exactly.
but they don't think that they can sell you.
No, because for me, it's like, oh, my teeth are fucked up. I have bad teeth. This, like there's this guy who might be a little bit more in better shape, but kind of have the same look. But like, I always say that the people who get the roles that I miss out on are like, if somebody asked you to draw a superhero of me, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
With all the same characteristics.
I also find that the roles that I'm right for are male roles,
Right.
like
okay.
personality wise.
Okay.
That when I read, like I was just my roommate is shooting a short film. She's she does a lot of comedy stuff, and she just moved out here from New York, and she's been trying to write and produce her own stuff, just like be doing something.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking to the preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's really funny. Her scripts are really funny.
Yeah.
And I was sort of table working a script of hers with her the other day, just because I felt like maybe I might have something to add, and,
Sure.
and I was like, if you
The
hate
kind of
all
thing
this,
you
like,
do with roommates.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you hate it, don't use it. I don't give a shit. But we were running through some of the lines, and I was like, just let me play this role.
Right. For one of the male roles.
Yeah, because it just like, I don't know. Those are the speech patterns that make sense to me.
Okay.
So I think that's another problem of mine is until we have more atomic blondes,
Right.
like there are no roles for me.
Right. So you feel like you don't kind of fit into the current mold of a lady or a woman or whatever the trope is.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Right.
I definitely think we're on the way. Like
right,
even the Furious, all the Charlize Theron roles. Just give them to me.
So pretty much you're just saying Charlize Theron is getting all the parts that you're good for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the Lizzie Kaplans and the Charlize Therons.
And you know what? And people like that are, like you said, they're on their way. I feel like there's definitely starting to become a shift. I feel like I'm seeing a lot more of those characters than I am of the, the bubbly
ingenue, typical,
or the manic pixie dream girl kind of thing.
Right. And not that like the only reason I ever missed out on a role is because of the patriarchy. Like that's not it. Sometimes I was just wrong for stuff. Or I blew it. Like I'm not.
You're generalizing, but it's not.
Sure.
It was clearly enough to make you unhappy with the way things were and to make a change.
Yeah.
So now are you sort of in that position where it's like, oh, if friends are making something but.
Usually if my friend Maggie is making something that involves an alien or a vampire, she calls me, Verona, and Alita. And we're like, we're here. How naked are we supposed to be? Which is great.
Maggie Levin, who we've future guest of the show, who we have mentioned on this show as well with Alex Marshall Brown and some of the people that are kind of in that little creative group.
Alex Marshall Brown. See, that's a person who like is here for the grind.
Oh, she
like
is
Alex
in
gets up in the morning and she fucking goes. And I respect that. I hate it.
No, she doesn't get up in the morning. She gets up at night. She's up at like fucking 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And is just in it.
I've been on set with Alex and she's practicing her like whip skills for something else while she's like in between takes. Like
in a dress.
Yeah. In a dress. Yeah. Everyone else is like sitting.
Yeah. Waiting on their phones, reading fucking Twitter.
Right.
Alex is everything I wish I was and more.
Yes.
So in any case, you still love the acting process and you still love acting, but it's not something you're driving towards. For a while, you were also producing your own stuff. Mm-hmm. You were writing. You were doing that work with the group Wayside Creations for a while, which is another thing that has since kind of gone the way of the dodo. But when you were doing that, you were consistently active. You were consistently doing fantastic work online. People may be familiar with you from the Fallout series, which was really wildly successful. Nuka Break was the short, and then the series was the same name? It was also called Nuka Break, right?
Fallout Nuka Break. So there's the original fan film, season 1 and season 2,
which just had like an anniversary recently. Like I just saw somebody post like, oh, like this, or like to shooting it, like, oh, X many years ago we were shooting in the desert.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Julian Higgins at that point, the director.
Yeah, we shot in July of 2010.
Wow, 7 years ago. I'm not in any of those things. I'm not bitter about that. But I'm not in any of them.
You would be surprised at how little power I had.
I'm kidding.
In that.
that was bringing you at least something. I mean, did you ride that wave in any capacity beyond that group? Because I feel like you were.
I mean, I think look, anything I do from here on out is a mix of old Nuka Break fans and new. So like, there are people who started following me on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever back in the Nuka Break days and got into InterroBang and have stayed supportive, which I am incredibly grateful for. It's unfortunate because Wayside Creations is such that entire like memory set in my mind is so riddled with like pain,
the problems that
now
came with it.
Because it just fell apart so tragically, for the people that it hurt,
of course.
And so it's hard because like on one hand I really loved making Nuka Break, even though I never want to be in the desert ever again forever. Verona was like, do you want to do Wasteland Weekend? And I was like, no.
Nope. Like I did that.
I did my time. Thank you. She was like, what if we get an RV? And I was like,
she's going to make you do it.
She's going to make me do it. But
I've been wanting to do that for years, by the way.
Well, I guess we're going. So if you want to come. But I really enjoyed making Nuka Break because, one, I love that universe.
Yeah.
I'm not good at the game, but I really love it.
Yeah.
When Zach came to me to make it and he was like, do you know Fallout? I was like, sure do. Would love to do that thing you want to do. I loved making it. I love working with Zach and Giles and my brother. We started making it without Cameron, and like Cameron came on.
Cameron is your brother.
My brother, Cameron Diskin. He got pulled on, and like I got to work beside my brother for like several years.
That's fun.
And that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now I feel partially responsible for like the destruction. Because it ended up hurting him too, which sucks. But but you can't. I didn't do it, but I pulled him in. So I feel whatever. Anyway, I really loved making Nuka Break.
The guilt is strong with this one.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Jew, so
yeah.
I still get a lot of like, when are you making more Nuka Break? And on the one hand, I'm like, I'm sad too because I'm like, never.
I wish.
Man.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you.
I wish I could say
right
yes.
now. Yeah.
But also, it was difficult, and we couldn't make money off of it, and like, there's another part of it that's like, part of me feels sad about it, and part of me is like really happy to be done with it, and it's sort of bittersweet.
A double-edged sword.
Yeah.
That what you just mentioned too, like we can't make money on this. Like I've always sort of had a kind of a love-hate thing with fan film. So for anybody who might not know, that is based off of a very popular video game franchise called Fallout. And I have had we know so many friends and people who have literally gotten their web-lebrity status, whatever you want to say, or just have done all of their work based on other people's IPs, other people's and I feel like it's a great way to get people to see the work you do. But ultimately, what is the percentage of people who are doing that are actually going to garnish something out of it more than just, hey, when are you going to make more of that thing?
Well, I think that we could have.
Yeah.
I really do. And I wish that the company hadn't been sort of like steered away.
Hell-bent. And okay. Was that the original plan? Was to like do an original thing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were ready to go, man. Like I try to be careful when I talk about it. Because the level of rage that I feel, I think would come off as being unreasonable,
right? Without
knowing the entire story, and for me to tell the entire story would take me,
of course,
days.
Yeah, of course.
So it's tough because I fear saying anything and somebody being like, that sounds like bullshit.
Right, yeah, of
and
course.
It's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We had intended we were only going to make the original fan film. Like we did not intend to continue to make anything off of somebody else's IP.
Yeah, right.
For more than that, but then we got 1 million views on it pretty quickly, and it was like, well,
ride the wave kind of thing.
Maybe we should do more of this.
Right.
Get our name out there, and then we can do licensed work, and and people maybe they'll want to pay us to make the thing. They never did. Bethesda was like, no, and we were like, what if? And they were like, no.
No.
We were like,
but what if then? Yeah.
But if we did, no. Okay. Which I kind of feel like it's their bad, but whatever.
Right. But it is one of those things where it's also, at the end of the day, it's crazy to me because so many people that we know out here that are incredibly talented people are spending their time making fan films and fan fiction. And it's always fun to live in that universe for a little while. And that's fantastic.
If you love something,
right.
like, I want to live in that. If somebody was like, we're making a Fifth Element fan, I'd be like, yes.
Sure. But
put me in it immediately.
But here's the thing is like, that's not a career. Like, you know, that's nothing to build a career on. Yeah. That was always my problem with sort of not just that group, but other groups that are always doing fan stuff. And it's like, this is great, but like, where do you expect this to take you? And everybody says the same thing, like, oh, maybe one day they'll hire me to make the real thing. And I was like, yeah, you and 1 million other people all doing the Doctor Who fan film or the, you know, whatever the thing is.
Yeah. I do think that Nuka Break was different from other fan material in that rather than just...
Well, the characters were original, right?
The characters were original, and we essentially just took the atmosphere and wrote something original living in that universe, which I think oftentimes when it comes to like video game fan stuff, people, they stay too close to the path. Right. Yeah. So they kind of stay on the road that the game already had, and it's like, why don't I just play the game? Like, this is not that different.
They're essentially just reshooting cutscenes.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that all of them are that way, but I do think that Nuka Break was different in that way, and that speaks volumes
that first short is great. That first short is super great. It's
Zach
original.
and Brian did a great job.
Well made. It's well written. It's you know.
And you know, it in other ways it kind of shot me in the foot because I kept getting asked to play like the weapon wielding snarky person, the girl in a group of boys. Where all the boys did all the stuff, and I would just like say something smart and leave. And I was like, I've already done that. Right. I don't want to play that 70,000 times, especially not for no money. Like, I don't need the exposure as this character. I've already played this character.
Give me something different.
So thank you, but please give that to someone else.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was a problem. And also for some reason, like, even when I still had long hair, nobody recognized me.
Right.
I don't look that different on screen. Like, it's not like Scar has a ton of makeup on, and I
Scar's the name of the character. Yeah.
I looked the same, and like I would be standing with Zach, and he would get recognized, and no one would. Right. It was so strange. I was like, but he'd be like, "That's Tybee," and they would be like, "Oh."
You think they were looking at those short shorts you're wearing? Maybe.
Probably.
They
were like, I recognize that ass.
I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Let's move on from this, just for the sake of me asking you a couple more questions that I'm interested in. Because again, most of the time we get together, we chat, we talk romance, we talk about our respective love lives or lack thereof at times. But you are an incredibly creative person. You've always been a creative person. I feel like you're one of those people who, like, if you're not working on something, like, your brain has to be. If you're not physically doing something. So if you're not actively pursuing, you know, trying to get roles right now, I feel like InterroBang maybe helped scratch that itch, because even if you weren't necessarily being creative, you were at least putting yourself out there. I have noticed in the 21 weeks that I've been doing this show now, a massive change in my psyche. And just like, even though I'm not out here every week creating, you know, original characters and creating fiction, it's still like I'm putting who I am out there in some way, shape, or form, even if it's in the form of asking another person questions, you know?
Well, I think part of being an actor is that you have 1,000 personalities somewhere in your head. And, and it's good to like get those out, whether it's through hosting or acting. I think it satisfies the same need.
So my question to you is like, how are you scratching that itch right now?
Okay, so I wrote a children's book.
Yes, you did.
And Zach Finfrock from Nuka Break is illustrating it right now. Or we're like at the beginning stages of that. We storyboarded it and or sort of, or I don't know what you would call it. We're working on the layout, et cetera, et cetera. So that has been really good. I finally
seeing like progress on that getting made.
Yeah. Like,
is that something you plan to self-publish, or you don't know?
That was the original plan. I'm not sure. The problem is it's hard to get like a lit agent if you only have one book in you.
Right. You're like, this is it. I'm done.
I just wanted to make this one story.
Right.
Not that I couldn't write more, but that's not really my plan.
And it's a personal story. It's kind of you're sort of the main character as a little kid.
Yeah. It's a tall tale about
literally
about myself and my grandmother. And it is about adoption from the viewpoint of a second generation, like adoptee. My mom is adopted. And as a child, sort of reckoning with that, like, I'm not related to this person.
Right, my grandmother who
Yeah,
who doesn't love anybody more than their grandmother. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's like
And specifically, like I have a tattoo of her name and her handwriting. Like
Right.
she was the best human being to walk the earth,
Right.
ever, forever. So I feel, and she also wrote a couple children's books about our dog when I was a kid.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and one of our family friends' daughters illustrated it. So like, it seems like the ultimate homage,
Right, yeah.
to like write a book
That's
about
really
her.
sweet.
Yeah, and it's called Chickadee and the Grandma Lady, because she used to email me. She was really savvy with technology.
Wow.
She once said the sentence, "Do you want my Nintendo DS?" And I said, "What?"
Wait, so how
I'm
old?
sorry, what?
How old is she in this scenario?
In this scenario, she's maybe 84.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what? And she goes, "My Nintendo DS." And I was like, "What?" I understand the words that you're saying, but not in that sentence.
The context.
Like I don't.
It's really the "my" that is throwing me in this scenario. Yeah.
That word "my."
How long ago is this?
So this would have been like late 2000s.
Okay.
Somewhere around
So right
there.
around the time you got out here.
Yeah.
If not before, right?
Yeah. I think it was after I had moved out here and was home for
Gotcha.
some short amount of time. She had a Nintendo DS that she would play like little brain training games on to keep herself sharp,
That's brilliant.
and she gave it to me. So she was just basically the coolest human being ever. And I just really loved her a lot.
And so writing this book kind of helped you
Yeah.
kind of
And she,
reach out to her?
the reason I brought up the technology is she would email me. She would address me as Chickadee and sign off the Grandma Lady.
The grandma lady, Chickadee and the grandma lady. I love
So it's
that.
Chickadee and the Grandma Lady.
How much of who you are do you think you got from her despite not being biological?
Oh, quite a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the way
yeah.
that you've described her to me at times, and even just like in photos, I feel like I see a lot of you in her, regardless of the fact that
Thank you.
you might not be biologically
Yeah, no,
related.
I feel very much like my sense of right and wrong and my desire to be a perpetual student,
Right.
learning on my own, taking control of that.
Right.
Which is something I pass on because she taught. She was a teacher, and
Oh, really?
and I'm a tutor, and I am frequently telling my students, like, you are responsible for your own education.
Is that like a thing that she would say to you?
Not in
Oh,
the,
I'm
and
not-
not in so many words, but she definitely made me feel like if I wanted to learn something, I was allowed to. I didn't have to wait for somebody else's permission.
Right.
Like if you want to know something, go find it.
Right.
And that has stuck with me. And a lot of times, my students, when they don't understand something and their teacher isn't helping them understand, I'm like, go find it yourself. Like you have the internet.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have the internet. You have no excuse. Google it.
Yeah.
See what you find.
Yeah.
So, I think I got a lot of my sense of like being a perpetual student, sense of right and wrong, my desire to help other people.
Is your mother similar, or is there the generational skip?
She is similar. She is not as like, is bombastic the right word?
Sure.
Like my grandma was
Sure.
she was very loud. She had a very loud voice,
Right.
A very distinct voice. She had surgery on her vocal cords as an adult. She had something wrong,
kinda
and so she had a very
quieted her.
scratchy voice.
Oh, gotcha.
It always sounded like she needed to clear her throat a little bit. It was kind of
Right.
interesting. I sometimes try and get my brother to imitate how she would answer the phone.
Oh, really?
She also had like a really like a Midwestern accent, so she would say things like Washington.
Washington. Yeah.
It was cute.
But your mom, you don't think
my
that your mom
mom-
was a little in the middle?
Yeah, she's in the middle. Like she's a little calmer, a little more reserved. Yeah, she's not quite as intense.
a large part of this fantastic book that you've written is your grandmother was incredibly tall.
Yes.
So you saw her as a giant as a
Mhm.
kid.
She was 6 feet tall.
and the
she
way
never
it-
shrank at all.
And what was great about that is that the way you've sort of adapted to the kids' book is like
Yeah.
she's a literal
She's an
giant.
actual giant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's
'Cause the
about-
way that a kid sees. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a little girl, me, but a little girl named
Little girl,
Chickadee,
yeah.
who finds out that her grandma's coming to town.
Right.
There's something very special about her. She's like, I want to know what this special thing is. And the mom lets her know that she's a giant. So she
Right.
spends all day and all night imagining
Yeah.
how big this giant person is,
Right,
and like
right.
how big is giant? I don't
Right.
know. Is she like the size of an airplane, or is she like just a little bit tall? Like how tall are we talking? Is she Shaq, or is she like
Right.
huge? So she in the morning
Right.
it turns out grandma's definitely a giant. She's close to 10 feet.
Right.
And
And it's so well written, and I love the fact that you took something. It reminds me of a movie that is kind of polarizing because some people will tell me that they hate it, even though I love it. It reminds me a little bit of Big Fish. I don't know if I even told you that when you read it to me that time.
I think you did. Yeah,
Like you literally read it to me once, and I just started crying because it's so goddamn good.
Thank you. It's gotten better since I read it to you.
Oh, great. But yeah, like it has. I love that sort of. There's sort of that motif that happens in a lot of sort of children's stories that I feel like kind of can grow into the adult version of said stories, where it's like you hear a tale as a kid. And it's going to be bigger to you, no matter what it is.
Right.
Everything is bigger to you. Like I told Paul once the story about an accident that I was in, and in my head, and when we were little kids, or car accident, in my little head, there was 150 police cars there. You know,
That's
like
so many police cars.
like that's what
It's
it
a
is
lot of police cars, Jake.
as a kid.
Right, there were 4.
Yeah, that was maybe two, maybe two,
Yeah.
maybe. But as a kid, like that's the way the detail is. The detail is like there's so many. Everything is so big.
Many.
And
cop
so
cars.
when you translate that into sort of this, this adorable tale that's kind of fantastical. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And I feel like
Thank
Big
you.
Fish, that was in that same spirit. It was the only reason I
Yeah.
love about that movie. About,
I love
like,
Big Fish.
dealing with his dads and all the tall tales that his dad told, and how they're all based on somewhat reality.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you haven't seen a movie from 15 years ago. But like at the end of the movie, you realize like all these tales have a truth to them.
Yes.
They're just a little bit
And
larger.
The idea of telling a story of my grandma where she was in fact an actual giant was that my dad's best friend's grandchildren were at our house for Father's Day.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what came over. I love children. I always have. Even when I was one, I liked kids that were younger than me.
Right.
Currently obsessed with my nephew. And I was telling one of the kids about my grandma, and it just like popped in my head. I was like, she was a giant. And she was like, nah. And I was like, oh, you want to bet? So I showed her a picture where it's like pretty clear that, because when you're used to seeing like little old ladies,
Yes.
my grandma does look like a giant.
Yeah.
Like she's 6 feet tall as an 80-year-old. Like
Right.
that's huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
So, and it's, a picture of me where I'm smaller.
Right.
So it's like, kids don't.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going
There's
to
enough
start.
there to suspend disbelief. Yeah.
Right. So that night I sat down and wrote like the first 5 stanzas of the book, which remained unchanged until recently. I changed one stanza. And that was like 5 years ago.
Right.
Something that I got from my grandmother, she was not a pretty woman.
No,
Like,
you don't
no
think so?
one-
Like
no.
traditionally?
No. Pictures of her when she was young. She's not a pretty lady.
She's a handsome lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a big woman. But not once did I ever hear her let on that was something that she thought about.
Oh, interesting.
She drove a bus in San Diego when she met my grandpa, who died when I was 5. He was cool. He was also very tall. He was a sailor, and there's that
Okay.
naval base in San Diego.
Right. Yeah.
And he would get on her bus and just ride around with her to talk to her.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah. And
Remember when people met in awesome ways?
and they were clear that they liked one another. And
Right.
it wasn't like, I don't know if you want to hang out or whatever. Just like, I like you. Great. Here's a
Great.
clear demonstration of that.
Yeah.
But they were in love, and nothing else mattered.
Right.
Like I got to look through their like their honeymoon kind of scrapbook.
Right.
And they came to Los Angeles for their honeymoon. And so it's like, it's really cool and kind of bizarre, because it's like, this is not what the city's like anymore.
No, yeah.
Like that someone would come here
What
on vacation is,
vague, rough estimate, like what year around do you think this is?
oh gosh.
Trying to paint a picture
of
pictures.
I want to say they were probably in their
I mean, is this 20s, 30s?
20s. Yeah. Because my mom was born in 49 and they adopted her at 6 weeks. So they were together.
Right, yeah.
So and she was born in 1921.
Okay.
So they were in their 20s.
So maybe it's the 50s.
Yeah, it's the 50s.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Or no, it's
Or
the
40s,
40s.
40s, 50s, yeah.
So it's mid 40s, yeah. And
Wow,
there are
that's
great pictures of him
crazy.
in his like dress whites and like
Yeah. Are they at like LA landmarks and stuff like that? Are they at places that you can
it's
see?
mostly
and you
just
can-
like napkins and menus
Oh,
and things like
right,
that.
yeah,
Like
gotcha.
dried flowers, all kinds of like hotel things. It just it's
Gotcha.
really
So
cool.
it's not as much photos as
Right,
it is.
right.
Gotcha. Okay,
And there are
understood.
some like colorized photos of her, but she was very tall even as a child, and she would
Yeah.
tell me stories of like having to make her own clothes because she was
Was
too
too
tall.
tall.
And she would get made fun of, and
especially like for a girl growing up in
Right.
the freaking 20s and 30s.
and she's from Coleridge, Nebraska, which is still has only like, I think it still has a population of like under 800.
Wow.
And it was a small town, but she just never let it bother her. Like she just didn't care. And I know it's a little different. She's not from the internet age,
Right,
so
yeah.
you can just like,
She didn't have people probably incessantly, judging
you're
her.
not being
and she's
picked over
She's also
constantly.
probably not seeing like, other women and,
she's not getting called a butterface dyke on the internet.
Jeez. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to
in
say.
case you were wondering, they've definitely been called that. Yeah. So it's probably
So
a
you
little easier.
Right.
But still.
But no, but what you're saying is you feel like that was something that maybe you noticed now as a woman who's like, oh yeah, that my grandmother never once heard her talk about beauty or talk about.
I noticed it as a child.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Because for whatever reason, when I look at pictures of myself as a child, you know how sometimes like you look at yourself and you're like, God, I was weird. Like, what an awkward kid.
That's me all the time.
But I was not.
Yeah.
I was a perfectly normal child. Like
Right.
I had like pretty blonde hair.
Right.
I looked totally normal, and kids were just awful to me about
Right.
the way that I looked. I was a little smaller than most of my peers because I skipped a grade and was just a small framed person until I was like 16.
Right.
But kids were really, really pretty brutal to me.
Right.
And I think her providing me with other things to focus on,
Right.
because she was so focused on being good to people and learning everything you could.
Also,
and
being a teacher
being
helps
kind,
her too. Yeah,
right.
because she has that natural ability to understand what she needs to do and how she needs to act
Right.
to teach something to somebody.
Sure.
A natural teacher is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get
she was
at.
a natural teacher. And she also was a yes-ander, to use an improv term. Like if I wanted to pretend something, like I liked to pretend that I owned a library, and we would like fake check out books
Right.
and stuff like that. So she made me this little kit that had like signs that said like Tybee's library and a stamp and little cards.
That's awesome.
And all this stuff so that we could play library. And she was always down. There was
Right.
never a single moment of hesitation. She was
Right.
like, "Oh, you want me to pretend to be a patron at your restaurant? Great,
Right.
let's do it." So it's just, she just was never, she was so non-judgmental and so
Right.
open and so honest and loving. And it's not that she never had a bad day, never had anything bad to say,
Right.
but it was just not her focus.
Right.
And that has stuck with me.
Well, that's awesome. And that's great that it led to this book, which I hopefully, I get to see sometime
Yeah,
soon.
I'm hoping we get it
completed.
done soon. I'd like to get it done.
So
that
that's
Ezra can
so
read it.
is that kind of taking up a large majority of your time is getting that done? Because this whole thing started with me asking you kind of what you're doing to like, scratch that creative itch.
I'm actually gonna go back to school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For anything specific?
I would like to be a high school guidance counselor.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
I work with 16, 17-year-olds now.
Right, as
doing
a
test
tutor.
prep.
Yeah.
And I just really like that age group. I remember needing somebody at that age.
Right. Yeah.
And my brother, like I think about if my brother had somebody who was a little more proactive in his
Right.
life as a
Yeah,
counselor.
I didn't. For me, I was very close. It wasn't a guidance counselor because there was two different. The guidance counselors in where I grew up were kind of useless. They were strictly like, "Oh, what classes are you taking?"
Yeah.
But we had a social worker, like the school social worker.
Yeah, or like a
She-
school psychologist.
Yeah, she was the one who I was very close with in school, and she was the one who I would talk with regularly. And like
That may be more what I'm looking to do, because
Oh,
I'm not
gotcha.
really down to be like, what college do you want to go to?
Right,
Let's
yeah.
look into your. That's not what I want. Like I
Right.
want to be the person who a kid shows up to and is like, these people,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with these feelings.
These people.
Well, that's what happened with my brother. Like, I
Right.
mean, we grew up in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
And he was
You
getting.
grew up in Tallahassee, Florida,
Mhm.
which is a college town,
Yes.
but also a like real like podunk religious community.
Yeah. So it's kind of half and half. Like,
Right.
like Leon County voted blue in the last election
Right.
because it's the capital. And there's,
Right.
there are two big universities and a community college.
Right. Yeah.
So there's FSU, FAMU, and TCC. So there is quite a bit of like progressive thought.
Yeah. And just youth. There's
and
youth,
youth.
that live there. Yeah.
But also there are kids, with
you go-
lifted trucks and Confederate flags.
You
on
go
the back
3
of them.
blocks out of that
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
I mean, we're 20 minutes from the Georgia border.
Yeah. I lived in Pensacola for a
Oh
year.
God.
And that's just Floribama. That's what
No,
that is.
thank you. No, thank you. Yikes. Yeah, no, I wish that I had somebody
Like that
on
when
my
you're-
team as a kid, and I think that's something that I would really like to do. Because I was gonna go into psychology, and I was like, I don't really want to be a scientist. I'm not interested in doing like
Right.
a fuck ton of research and publishing every. Like, I just don't.
I love your honesty. I love your like. Yeah, I don't feel like studying. I don't feel like this work.
Well, no, I don't mean
case.
studying for the major, but
Right.
when there's like extra stuff you have to do that I just don't really want to do.
Yeah.
I just don't really want to do it.
I mean, I'm going to equate this to me as a teenager finding out that in order to become a game designer, I had to understand like math and computers, and me being like, oh, okay, then I'm not going to do that.
Gross. That sounds terrible.
That's gross. Yeah, no, I just want to draw pretty pictures and write stories. I mean,
you could still do that. You just have to be hired onto an existing company.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, tell that to 13-year-old Jake who's like, I don't know what I want to do. Well, I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of
Aren't we supposed to be talking about some romance or
our
something?
lives. Are we supposed to talk? We could do a whole episode on our romance. We might. Yeah, let's save that. Actually, let's save our romance.
Okay.
Our bromance.
I'm your bro.
Sure. Don't know. Tybee, how do the people find you on the internets?
My Twitter and Instagram are the same. They are Hello Tybee Ren. So it's HELLOTYBEEREN.
Ren is your middle name.
Ren is my middle name.
I know that.
Which I didn't know that people were reading my handle as like Tiberian, and I was like, "What is that?
Tiberian?
Isn't that strange?"
Yeah, but that's not even what it says.
It's not what it says. No. But also people read my name weird. And
right.
It's
so find her at Hello Tiberian.
Hello Tiberian. Fuck you. And then that's mostly
and go back and listen to all 69 episodes of InterroBang. It's a fantastic show. Is that still on iTunes?
Yep, still on iTunes and Libsyn.
All the places where podcasts are.
Stitcher and Pocket Casts.
You will most definitely be back on this show. We live up the road.
Yes.
Literally anytime you want to come and talk about some shit. I am here. We are here. I would love to have you. You just let me know. As usual, those listening, please find me online at Liquid Jake on Twitter.
You gotta change your handle.
Oh, I gotta
change. You gotta change it. Wait, let's dream up a new handle for you. You can't be Jake Lloyd.
I would love to be Jake Lloyd.
Does Jake Lloyd have it?
Okay, no, not that shitty Jake Lloyd.
Oh, a different Jake Lloyd.
By the way, I don't like the way that you said that. I don't like the way that you said that as if he's the Jake Lloyd.
No, you're the Jake Lloyd. I just meant I know that he's the one you're thinking of.
Actually, the guy who has it has never tweeted. He has 9 followers, 8 of which are people who thought that it was me when he first signed up, I'm guessing, because they were all people who were like friends of mine and followed me. And he looks like he's a massive Limp Bizkit fan based on his photo. I'm just being so judgmental. I'm being such an asshole right now. But he's literally never tweeted. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to write Twitter and be like, hey, I want this handle, please.
No, you can write him.
I've tried writing him multiple times, but I don't think he uses Twitter. I don't think.
Like
I don't know even where it's going. And it's been that way since the birth of Twitter. Like he probably got it immediately and just never used it. It's driving me crazy.
Sucks. Can you put like an underscore?
I don't want to be that guy.
Why?
Because I'm an asshole.
So you chose Liquid Jake, huh?
Listen, but
that
also
was the better choice.
The thing is that now that's been around for so long, and through all the other podcasts I've done, and like everybody, like it's just one of those things where I'm like, I just need to rip the Band-Aid off now. I should
just do it,
but I'm stubborn.
I thought about changing mine, and I was like, I'll just leave it.
Yeah.
Because it's been there for a while. I get it.
Well, for at least a couple more weeks, you can find me on Twitter at Liquid Jake.
Until you think of something better, you can find him at Liquid Jake.
Also, the show has its own Instagram and Twitter now, brand new, shiny and new. Follow at Elaborate Pod on that stuff. Please follow at It's Dragon Wagon on all social media to keep up with all things Dragon Wagon Radio. I cannot believe we're at 21 weeks now, 22 weeks rather.
Wow. I wish I had a little Owen Wilson soundboard to be like, wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow. That's really, I can't do an Owen Wilson. I tried. I didn't. It failed.
This is close.
I'm close.
You got to sneak up on impressions. Travis and I always say that you got to sneak up on
them. You got to sneak up on
Can't think about it too hard.
That makes perfect sense. That's what I tried to do. And then I rescinded.
Yep. Then you think you got in your head. Yeah.
Killed it.
No.
If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us reviews. They're so incredibly important. I am so thankful to those who have reviewed us so far. We are a 5-star rated podcast. Please continue to do that because it helps us rank. It helps people find the show organically. hey, how about this? If you listen to the show and you like it, please tell a friend. Please share it. Also, I know I haven't spoken at all about my trip. I've mentioned that I've been on a trip for a while. I want to thank the Long Island International Film Expo for awarding me and my feature film Pinch Best Debut Feature Film, as well as a nomination for Best Feature. That film festival is a fantastic experience. I had such an incredible time home. It was so great getting to share those moments and share that experience with members of my family on Long Island. I want to thank everybody who came out to those screenings, who participated in the Q&A, in the workshop. I look forward to speaking a little bit more about that. I might have Tony on to discuss that and some more Pinch-related stuff. But thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for continuing listening. Tybee, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to have you back. I love you.
Let's do it soon. Love you too.
Hey, everybody. I'm sitting down real quick with my good friend Zen Zenith. Hey, Zen.
Where am I?
Where are you? You are on an episode of Elaborate in a fantastic little segment we call a commercial.
Oh, this is really nice. I like what you've done with the place.
Appreciate it. You know, I try.
So I think I'm here to talk about my podcast.
You're here to talk about a fantastic show called The House Show Show.
Right. Yeah. So The House Show is the podcast I host. It's a live concert and event series. So the whole thing is recorded live. We have a little audience there. And what happens is I have guest singer-songwriters join me, and they play some songs in sort of an intimate setting. And I sit down and talk to them, and then we do a Q&A with the audience, and it's a lot of fun.
So it's like storytellers meets Unplugged meets a fantastic live podcast.
Right. It's like the Moth Story Hour meets Late Night with Seth, whatever his last name is.
Sure,
meets The Nerdist.
I love it.
Your favorite hang in your favorite living room.
And I am a massive music nerd. This totally speaks to me. There's nothing I love more than live music, and there's nothing I love more than live music in a really intimate setting. It really is a fantastic show, I must say.
You are going to love this. You can check it out online at thehouseshowshow.com, or we're also available on iTunes and Stitcher.
Fantastic, bud. I hope everybody checks it out.
Me too. That would be rad.
Dragon Wagon.